I told y'all. I told you, you, everybody involved. It didn't matter how good the Philadelphia offensive line was, how good the Philadelphia defensive line was. It don't matter. They're number one in the league in defense for quick yardage, quick plays. Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. I told you. That is what I would have said had the Chiefs won Super Bowl 59. This would have been lit, and it would have been a victory cigar. That's not the case, though. And Patty, unfortunately, as great a start as you've had to your career, and as dominant as you have been in this period of time with the Kansas City Chiefs, arguably the most dominant tenure we've seen in recent history after that performance last night, I can no longer look at any NFL supporter and tell them you're the greatest of all time. Because that right there was your worst NFL game in the biggest moment of your career. Let's talk about it. And how I wanted it so badly, Mahomes. So much I wanted to make that argument for you. For 6 years, you've been grinding it out. You've been beating every single one of your contemporaries. Anyone that came before you, you guys sized them up. You looked them top to bottom. And you said on to the next. For 6 years. I can only point to one other time in your career in which I can say, damn, you didn't play well enough to win at the hands of Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. You guys proceeded to win 2 Super Bowls. Have not lost in 3 years in the playoffs. Leading up to this Super Bowl. Culminating in the most important moment. The most historical game in the NFL. A chance for a team to three-peat. You've already created history. Being the first to take it back to the Super Bowl after going back to back. And you're right there at the doorstep. And it's almost as though the entire 3 years, all the moments, all the critics, all the expectations, it all culminated in this very game. And for once, what was thought to be such a formidable feat became expectations. And I've said this before. There's nothing that can kill a man more than expectations. For once, it was no longer to talk about, is it possible for the Chiefs to string together 3 Super Bowl winning campaigns when no other team has even gotten back to the Super Bowl after 2 successive championships? You were already there. And Mahomes, as much as I would like to come to your defense, if I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to do what it is that I do best and provide cogent analysis for the people viewing this, then I'm going to have to place the majority of the blame at your feet. To whom much is given, much is expected, Patrick. And if you are being given all the adulations, if you are given all the honors, if you are given majority of the praise for this dynasty, then I have to give you some criticism for when you fall. And as big as a fan as I am of you, I can't look past tonight. I can't look past you being rattled, you being shook, the moment being too big for you, the uncharacteristic turnovers, the first ever pick 6 in your playoff career, the inability to lead your teammates, instill belief in that team from the beginning of this game. I can't look past it, Mahomes. And it breaks my heart, man. It really does. I really wanted to come up here today and celebrate because it was the one argument that I had besides the eye test. And I've said this to so many people. Brady, you can't argue his intangibles. You can't argue his competitive nature. You can't argue his obsessed nature with the game. And most of all, you can't argue 7 Super Bowls, the most in NFL history. But if you had a chance to get in that conversation, other than going on to winning 7 Super Bowls, of course, then you had to do something that Brady never did. You had to do something that no one has ever done. Three-peat. And the moment you guys won it last year, after going back to back, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, conversation goes like this. We got to do it one more time. You weren't even allowing yourself to enjoy those 2 championships. The moment you guys got that trophy on the podium, the microphones picked it up. You guys were already talking about 3 in a row. Never to be done. That's that obsessive nature that you have to be great. And I saw it. I believed in it. It worked. It got you this far. The intangibles that I talked about with Brady. The obsessive nature. Me and Travis are going out and the girlfriends are coming with us. We're going to play golf, but I'm going to stay in the car and watch film. The football geek that you are. I believed that it was entirely possible for this team to pull it off. When there were doubts, when there were penalties, when there were drops, when there was your team leading the league in penalties, you guys found ways to win games. Winning 17 straight 1-score games. NFL records tumbling on their way to a three-peat. Conversations start to open up you didn't even think were possible. Is this the greatest team of all time? Are we witnessing the greatest athlete of all time? Are we witnessing the greatest winning of any team? That's what was on the line. Sunday night, Super Bowl 59. And you came up short. You came up embarrassingly short, Mahomes. Who is to blame? How much blame does Andy Reid get? How much blame does the quarterback get? There's a lot to go around. So let's start. Now, everyone knows you cannot make yourself a one-dimensional offense. You are that much easier to guard. You are that much more predictable. So if you are going to eliminate the run game completely from the jump, and you're going to be as predictable as we're going to pass on every down, what is that going to allow for 4 pass rushers to do? Pin their ears back and rush the passer, knowing that you're not going to hand it off. You know how many rushing attempts this team had in the first half? 7 designed runs in the game. Fewest in Super Bowl history. 7 on the first 4 drives of the play. They ran the ball once for 2 yards. By the time they attempted their second run, the score was 14-0. So if you want to give Andy Reid some blame, that's as much as I'm going to put at the feet of Andy Reid. I have never seen this team look as unprepared, as shaken, as defeated as they looked after the first quarter. And if you want to blame the coaching staff for that, go ahead, have at it. And yes, your offensive line is decimated. Sure, you're playing your left guard at left tackle. You have a mismatch on the entire left hand side of the offensive line. But what you can't do as a quarterback, and we've seen it in all the playoff games, when winning the turnover battle is essential in winning the game. You cannot compound your mistakes by throwing interceptions. And he threw 2 interceptions in the first half. They all got converted into points. In a case where your defense was playing exceptionally well, and everybody's going to look at me and they're going to go, defense is playing exceptional. They gave up 40 points. Yeah, they gave up 40 points. In the first half, they gave up 10 points after punts. After the interception, and you give the team a short field to work with, that's where the other 14 points come from. Do you know how much harder it is for a defense to function if they're going to be on the field the majority of the time? If every single time your offense goes on there, and it's 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, defense back on, defense back on, defense back on. You give the Philadelphia Eagles with that offensive line and that running game the chance to pound your defense again and again and again. You don't think those guys are going to get tired? If this was a boxing match, the referees would have stopped it already. It was an absolute beatdown by the Philadelphia's offensive line. And it goes back to Andy Reid's philosophy of how he built the Eagles team in 1996. And it's a philosophy that is left in Philly. And now Nick Sirianni is building that team the same way that Andy did through the offensive line and back through the defensive line. It solidifies that saying in the NFL where the game is won and lost at the line of scrimmage. Always has, always will be. If you can't protect the quarterback, if you can't stop the run, if you can't run the ball, everything else renders obsolete. It doesn't matter how quick your receivers are. It doesn't matter how good hands they have. It doesn't matter what a stud running back you have. It doesn't matter how great your quarterback is. If you can't keep your quarterback upright, none of it matters. If you can't give him the time to make decisions, to make adjustments, the entire outcome of the game is predicated on the offensive and defensive line. And the Philadelphia Eagles dominated both. So we got to do it the hard way now. And I still believe you're going to do it. From what I've seen, Patrick Mahomes is still going to go down as the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. If you want to break it up to decades, he's been the greatest quarterback in his 20s. Now you got to go be the greatest quarterback in your 30s. Could have saved yourself some time, winning 3 in a row, and putting this discussion to bed. Now you got to do it the hard way. Now you got to go for the next 10 years and try to win 4, at least. And who knows? Maybe you do it in such dominating fashion that it doesn't matter. But for now, Tom Brady is the GOAT. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback to ever do it. And if any chance you have of having this discussion again, Patrick, it's going to be at least 5 years from now. Viking out.